It's Thursday night, and you know what that means. Talking Jersey City is live right now on Facebook via StreamYard, also on YouTube, as well as on LinkedIn, Instagram, and X. Folks, I am Fernando Uribe, the host of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe on Jersey First TV, and he is Aaron Morrill, the distinguished editor of the Jersey City Times. Folks, this is Talking Jersey City. It takes 2 seconds. Like, comment, and share tonight's episode on all of your social media platforms. I want to thank you all for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so here tonight. Aaron, what's going on, baby?
Not much. Good to see you, Fernando. Been real busy. Lots of news, which we're going to get to.
Yeah.
Can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah. Let's get right to it. And folks, again, happy Valentine's Day weekend in advance and happy President's Day weekend in advance. We appreciate you making this a part of your Thursday night viewing. Yeah, man. Listen, first and foremost, just looking at the news here, I know you broke it earlier in the week, and you know, we're both invested because we know him personally. The passing of Gary Greenberg, the the director of the Boys and Girls Club, born and bred in Jersey City, started working, back when I was born, 1975, as a driver. And he's just had such a great presence in the community. I've been engaged in philanthropy for a lot of years. I hosted toy drives for the Boys and Girls Club. What a good guy. And when I heard about his passing, it just it reminds you, a guy gone too soon, but a great guy in the community, though.
Yeah, I heard that Rob Menendez actually talked about Gary actually in the House in Washington. And gave an eloquent little speech about him. There was a quote that I found from one of his prior students, which I think is worth reading to people. This kind of goes to the way he really affected people. This is an adult talking about how Gary affected him. He said, "You tried to save every single kid that walked through those boys' club doors. I'm everything I am today because of you and the resources you provided for me. You were a legend and a true gem. Your legacy will live on forever."
I mean, that's
amen, right?
Yeah, amen to him. Well said there by our representative out of the 8th Congressional District here in Hudson County. Again, I had the privilege of working with him on multiple occasions, and he was just a very easygoing guy. And, for a person that had such a big presence in the community, though, man, it's very humble, very easy to talk to. Because I remember when I first met him some years ago, trying to, host a toy drive, you would think like you're talking to like the county executive. Like that's sort of the presence he had with people. Like he was that well regarded. And to hear his passing, certainly our condolences go out to his family. But so he left a lasting impression with the Boys and Girls Club, and certainly within Hudson County, especially Jersey City, Aaron. Very
few people have the kind of impact that he had. He lived a good life, and there's a Jewish expression, tikkun olam, which means to repair the world. And Gary seems to have been on that mission to repair the world through working with kids who are at risk. He had a passion for that, and the world is a better place for him. And sorry to see him go too soon, but he made a difference.
Yeah, listen, he lived a wonderful life, a very fulfilling life, and one that, as you said, just had an enormous impact on so many people. And I'm sad to see him go. And certainly, the Boys and Girls Club, collectively, all the chapters regionally, I think we're better off for his leadership and his direction. And listen, you just said it right now. I mean, working with at-risk youth is not easy. It's demanding. It can be exhausting. It can be just tiring. But I mean, it's fulfilling.
And there's nothing more important in Jersey City. It's something that I feel very strongly about.
Yeah.
A lot of kids. I mean, if you look at our crime problems in Jersey City, so many of them, the real serious crimes, can be traced back to kids that just don't have the structure and the support they need. These are young kids getting into some serious trouble. It's something I know you know something about. This is something you studied, right? You have a PhD in this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And Gary saw that as an important issue. He had a reputation for going out and during the crack epidemic back in the late 80s. He was going out apparently and meeting with kids on the street and trying to bring them into the Boys and Girls Club. I guess it was the Boys Club then. And then they made it the Girls Club. So he was really, he was really on the ground and getting his hands dirty and really trying to help kids that needed it. So, God bless him. And, his memory is a blessing.
No, listen, you're absolutely right. I think you nailed it perfectly. I mean, he's a guy that left a legacy and a guy who was committed. It wasn't just like, oh, it's about the title. It's about being about the role. And I think that there's a distinct difference when it comes to people like that, especially working in philanthropy, working with the community. And I got to tell you, I mean, over the years, you would know that whenever you saw him at political events, and he didn't go to a lot of them, there was always a circle around him. Because of his presence, and local officials knew to talk to him because he had a really good pulse of the community. He had a really good pulse about, the youth in Jersey City and nearby Hoboken, nearby municipalities.
That's right. We can't leave out Hoboken.
And he always had a crowd around him. And I think whoever was mayor in Hoboken, Jersey City, nearby municipalities as well, always knew to have Gary there, and always welcome him in for feedback. And I think you brought up a great point now. If there was ever a moment, and we'll get to the mayoral race in a minute, but if there's ever a reminder about the importance of recreation programs and working with kids, I would hope that moving forward, to all the candidates out there, to everybody, let's do that. Let's commit ourselves to that in Gary's memory. I'll say that.
Yeah. Amen.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Aaron, just look at the list here. Great, obviously great content. Folks, if you don't subscribe to the Jersey City Times, again, just go to jcitytimes.com and listen, for a cup of coffee, one less latte, all right? For all the little latte liberals I know in Jersey City, one less latte a month, that's all you need to do to subscribe and afford the Jersey City Times. So do us a favor, subscribe to local news. Obviously we're always talking about the establishment media. Well, this isn't establishment media, folks. This is good independent media. Do me a favor, for one cup of coffee a month, that's all it takes to subscribe to the Jersey City Times. So do that by going to jcitytimes.com. Listen, no commission was earned during that plug, by the way.
Thank you for the plug.
But another sad news, obviously on a different level, but whether it's the economy, Aaron, whether it's just property taxes going up, rent, leases, whatever you want to call it, seeing local businesses closing in Jersey City was, it was really sad for me. I mean, especially Barcade, it's such a great first date spot. I mean, I think I've lost count of the amount of girls I've taken over the years to Barcade in downtown Jersey City.
First date, really? Fernando, that doesn't seem like a first date place to me, but maybe that works for you. I don't know.
Yeah, video games, beer, a cocktail, a little competition.
A video game.
Pac-Man. Listen, you'd be surprised. You meet a girl like Galaxia and, hey, that little competition, But listen, whether it's Fox and Crow or Barcade, obviously I know, another closure in the city, great piece there this past week in the J City Times. What are you hearing were some of the reasons for these closures, for these great businesses?
Well, actually, I reached out to Fox and Crow to try and get some of the details, and I have not heard back from them. I did get to know the ownership a little bit, and seemed like great people. So I wouldn't venture a guess. Business is hard in Jersey City. There are a lot of new entrants into the marketplace, restaurants, bars. And there is a finite customer base. So I think it probably was somewhat economically driven. There's just so much going on in Jersey City now. I mean, you have, for music, obviously you have White Eagle Hall. There's a place. There's a jazz place right near Fox and Crow.
Yep.
So there are a bunch of small places opening up. The Statuary, that's the name of it. There are a bunch of other places competing. But I always found Fox and Crow to be filled with people.
Yeah.
And so I was surprised. It didn't seem like they were suffering for clientele. And I heard great music there. It was a great intimate space. The food was good, friendly. I loved it. So we're my wife and I, we are brokenhearted about the demise of Fox and Crow, and we hope somebody can bring something back that's kind of similar, that has that funky, intimate vibe that allows you to see music right up close. And as Tris McCall said, you could always hear all the words. It was that intimate. You could, it was a great place to hear music. And they had a lot of different kinds of music. They had, I heard jazz, I heard, I heard folk music, I heard Latin music there. It was, it was really great, eclectic, fun. So another sad loss for Jersey City. Obviously, nobody died, but it's a loss nonetheless. And Barcade, that's too bad. I think some of that may be related to that building that Barcade is in. That I know that's going to be developed. It's the same building that Jersey City Theater Center is in, and I know that that building is slated for some type of development. So don't know exactly what's happening with that.
I did hear that their lease was not going to get renewed. Obviously, so they'll be around until mid to late June. But again, I think it's really a sign of what's in the eyes of many, right, man? Like what's going wrong with Jersey City? Pricing some businesses out, making.
Well, it's a tremendously dynamic market. People are taking buildings, they're renovating them. There's a lot of construction still. Nothing is nothing is secure, nothing is set. Things are changing fast in Jersey City, and it is a very competitive market. It's the rents are very high, so the fact that they're not reopening in a different space says to me that that the numbers probably didn't work. You have right down the street, you have some very big, Porta and, huge locations.
Yeah.
Huge venues.
I will say this, though. I think that the component about Barcade that's really bothersome, obviously they're relocating to downtown Manhattan, which, if I remember correctly, one of the original Barcades I went to was in the East Village. And again, it's always been a good spot for me. Listen, I'm a kid at heart. I love video games. I don't play them as much as I used to. But, going to, a nostalgic venue like that where you can eat. Again, it's bar food. No one's saying this is Uber Eats here. But, obviously some bar food, have a beer, have a cocktail, play Pac-Man, play Galaxian, whatever, pinball. These are things that are enjoyable. Having said that, I think it bears repeating that, a lot of businesses since the pandemic really failed to recover. Let's think about how it was in Jersey City and throughout New Jersey. A lot of businesses did not survive being shut down as long as they were. And then, of course, little by little, obviously, they get reopened at a certain percentage capacity. And for a venue like Barcade, where you need people, obviously that wasn't conducive. The same thing for music venues. And, for an area like downtown Jersey City that's so about the arts and culture, the less you have venues that you mentioned, especially the musical ones, it's a real, I think it's a testament to what's going wrong with Jersey City, though, Aaron. Again, I don't want to be apocalyptic here, but I think it's one of the things that reminds us about, like, hey, we're kind of losing certain elements that make Jersey City, bro.
Yeah, it's constant change, and it's an unsettled place, is what I would say. It is really kind of the Wild West out there with all the construction and all the development, and it's not for the faint-hearted if you get into the business. Retail is tough. The restaurant business is tough. It's hard, and I think it does behoove the city to do more to support these businesses and listen to them. And this kind of might segue a little bit into the SID issue. We were going to talk a little bit about the new SID that's proposed for Journal Square to support Pompidou. But the SIDs are there to support businesses and to find ways to help businesses save money, to make the neighborhood more conducive, friendlier. And I think at this point, the pedestrian mall is kind of a question mark, whether it's a place people want to spend time or whether it's a place people want to just sort of walk through and move on, because I think you hear from businesses that they're not doing well, and then you hear concerns about security. There's not enough police presence there. It can get pretty rowdy on weekends, as we know.
Absolutely.
And it can be difficult to get police response when you need them. You hear that from people. So and then there's a little bit of a homeless problem. It all sort of adds up to an environment which isn't ideal for restaurants that want to put tables out and attract families, and
absolutely.
It's a little rough around the edges, and I think somebody's going to have to deal with that at some point.
Absolutely, and we'll get to that in a little bit in terms of the mayoral candidates, and obviously, they've been very much about quality of life issues, and obviously we'll delve into a little bit into who's really about it and who's not. But real quick, folks, again, it's 6:14 here on the East Coast. If you just joined us, welcome to Talking Jersey City here. I'm Fernando Uribe, the host of Real Talk via Jersey First TV, and he is Aaron Morrill, the editor of the Jersey City Times. Again, check out jcitytimes.com. Folks, like, comment, and share, and keep the comments coming. Apparently, someone's calling you the Messiah tonight here in the comments section. So, hey, okay, cool. I might have to replace you on my phone as Aaron the Messiah. They're on my contact list there. So
calling me the Messiah.
Yes,
I like that.
Aaron Morrill is absolutely the Messiah, end quote there. So good stuff from our audience tuning in tonight.
The second coming, I take it.
There you go. No, but to your point about the Sid column, I know you ran, obviously, some details here. Obviously, the Bauman project projected that a $4 million property would pay about $2,000 annually, and a $250 million property would pay about $125,000 annually. I'm assuming that's property taxes. It would be obviously going up every year. For our audience that maybe isn't aware of that, why is this story so significant, bro?
Well, obviously, Pompidou, or Pompidou X as it's called, is this museum that Mayor Fulop and his erstwhile ally Phil Murphy sprung on us during the pandemic. It was an idea to bring the Pompidou Museum, a branch of the Pompidou Museum from Paris, to Jersey City, and create sort of a magnet museum that would help businesses all around and would put Jersey City on the cultural map. That was the thought. It's said that Charles Kushner was behind the idea, and Tammy Murphy was also behind it. And as the details came out, it became clear that it was an extremely expensive undertaking. As people may recall, first it was going to go into this Pathside building at Journal Square. The state pulled funding for Pompidou after a falling out between Murphy and Fulop. Fulop says it was retaliation. The Murphy administration, or the Economic Development Authority, said it was based on the numbers not working, that there was a $17 million yearly operating deficit, which appears to be true, actually. There was a huge deficit. The city hadn't figured out how to pay to make the museum work. It's $23 million a year just to run it, and then it was hundreds of millions of dollars to build it. So it's super expensive. And Steve Fulop, Mayor Fulop, once the state pulled funding, decided that Jersey City would go it alone. And in order to do that, the city granted Kushner Real Estate a $150 million tax abatement, in exchange for which the city gets a 100,000 square foot white box into which we can now put the Pompidou Museum. So for the city, taxpayers are going to give up 150 million in tax revenue and get this white box that we can then put the Pompidou Museum into. The cost of building out the Pompidou Museum with that white box is going to be hundreds of millions of dollars, probably, after that. So this new SID, this new Special Improvement District, has been proposed and is on for a vote tonight. has been proposed to help pay for the operating expenses of the Pompidou Museum. It's said it's going to raise $1 to $2 million of that $23 million a year operating cost. And the proposal is quite controversial. Rich Baggiano is against it, as are Gilmore and Solomon. Steve Fulop's quote unquote team seems to be standing with him on this to set this up, but property owners are not happy. Those who own properties worth $4 million or more would be on the hook for a yearly payment of several $1,000s to go towards the Pompidou Museum. The argument that the city makes is that the Pompidou Museum is going to increase the value of their properties, and therefore it'll be a wash, or they'll even get it. They'll be ahead. They'll be paying for funding the Pompidou Museum, but that's going to help the property values and the business climate around Journal Square. That's the thinking. The city does have, or the JCRA does have a report that they commissioned on the effects of the Pompidou Museum. They claim it's going to be a boon to local businesses. The report is controversial, and not everybody agrees with the conclusions. But that, in a long nutshell, is what is going on here. Sorry for the
no,
link.
I mean, listen. We need this sort of detailed explanation so our viewers can understand really why it's so important that we stand against this. I mean, listen. At the end of the day, though, Aaron, and we've talked off the air about it, even when you've been on my show as well. I mean, there's a lot of Journal Square that doesn't look recognizable anymore. I mean, I'm a hometown guy. I grew up out to Canada my whole life. And I remember what Journal Square looked like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, I'm driving through Journal Square now. I feel like I'm driving through Gotham City. I feel like I see Wayne Tower up, literally in the middle of that entire complex. And it's a reminder of how it's pricing people out. And in a city that needs, again, you live there, I don't, but from the cheap seats, what I can argue is, for a city that needs more cops hired, that needs recreational programs for our kids, again, to help keep them out of trouble, to provide improvements to our schools. I mean, the summer will be here before you know it. There are still old buildings in Jersey City that don't have air conditioning. Okay, and there's a plethora of things that this money could go to make a difference in Jersey City. And again,
specifically the Pompidou Museum money. I mean, I think the administration would say that all of this real estate development is, bringing in rateables, is bringing in tax, people that, buy stuff and who live here, and that's going to be a net positive for Jersey City. And indeed, Jersey City's the value of Jersey City property land has just gone through the roof in the last 15 years. Jersey City has, I think, more than double the value of Newark, which is a slightly larger city.
Yeah.
If you look at the value of all Jersey City property, it's 2 or 3 times what Newark's is.
Sure.
And this is all the result of all of this, luxury construction. But so the city would say, look, this is going to generate a lot of business and jobs, yada, yada. And it's going to also pay taxes, which is good for the city. But your point about not having the money, the city is going to be on the tab, on the hook for funding Pompidou.
Yeah.
The mayor has set it up.
That's what I'm saying.
Prior to his falling out with Murphy, which happened because he pulled his support from Tammy Murphy and transferred it to Andy Kim. Prior to that, the state was going to be picking up a lot of the tab for Pompidou. Now the city is on the hook for it. And you are right. And a lot of people are saying that this is completely outrageous, that the city cannot be on the hook for this. Sam Pott of Nimbus Dance, who knows more about funding an arts organization than anybody probably in the state, did an op-ed in the Jersey City Times this week, pointing out the financial problems of Pompidou. And he's not the only one. McGreevy put out an op-ed today or the day before. So there's a lot of opposition to Pompidou. And I think Pompidou, once Mayor Fulop is gone, I think Pompidou is on very thin ice. I'm not sure that we ever see Pompidou. I think the space will probably end up being something else. Maybe the city can sell the space to Whole Foods or Wegmans or some, because they need a.
Well, Aaron, but let's be fair. I mean, the only hope really that exists for Pompidou is if Steve Philip becomes governor. I mean, that's really at the end of the day the end game. That's the only hope that it has to survive. If it doesn't,
right. And would Steve, I suppose if he became governor, he would want to see, his project completed. Who knows? Who knows what he'll, do if he becomes governor. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I don't think it happens unless he becomes governor, because I think once he's out of Jersey City, there isn't any major mover for advocate for this project. Nobody. There are very few people that are in favor of this project. It was kind of foisted on us, by the powers that be.
Yeah, I know. And again, we'll get to Steve Philip a little bit later. Obviously, where he stands right now. But keep it local here. Obviously, moving on from the Sid story, again, great coverage as always by you and the Jersey City Times. On a local level, obviously this week, former Governor McGreevey, current mayoral candidate, introduced a new member of the ticket, Meredith Burns, who I know, for those who aren't familiar, and I'd be shocked if you're not, the executive director of Art House Productions in downtown Jersey City, a wonderful venue, obviously very entrenched in the community. And again, listen, I'm always about handicapping races. And, I'm a big gambler. I always like to look at sort of the odds and handicap things. Meredith checks off a lot of boxes, I think, for the McGreevey campaign. Obviously, she's young, she's a mom, she's nice to look at, certainly very energetic. I think a woman with a lot of credentials. I think it brings a big boost of energy to a campaign that some would say was a little stagnant right now with the ticket. Again, I'm not being mean. That's what sources tell me. But I thought it was a good pickup by McGreevey because, again, the only incumbent he has on the ticket right now is current Councilman Boggiano, who has a following in his ward. I'll give him that. But the other members of his ticket right now tend to be unknowns. That's not the case with Meredith Burns.
That's right. Meredith is known. I think she brings a little pizzazz to his ticket. A certain Jersey City glitz, if you will.
Yeah.
She's, and she's a smart person. She's very attractive in a lot of ways. And I think she is sophisticated. Now she is running at large, I believe. And, I think interesting that she's doing that. She probably has a stronger base downtown, but there's some strong candidates downtown.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And so I think it's a smart move to have her run. Well, actually, he had already picked somebody for Ward E. So he already has a candidate for Ward E. But that being the case, she's better known downtown. She probably would have, been a strong candidate downtown. But as an at-large candidate, she just brings a certain, a certain panache to the McGreevey slate. So, one of the things I would like to write about is slates generally, and why we need them and whether we should have them. And we should put a pin in this as a discussion, and it's something I want to write about. But slates generally, to me, are not a positive thing, as we've seen for the last 12 years. The slate that was elected has basically voted in lockstep with the administration on virtually everything, and you don't have the city council playing a role as a check on the mayor in any way. And I think we really need a much more independent city council to push back, to ask better questions. And so long as we have these slates, I think it's not going to be the best for Jersey City.
Well, I mean, let me just ask you this, though, man. I mean, again, you live in Jersey City, and I understand. Listen, you're a lawyer, so obviously, I'm sure you did great in con law, and obviously, we all understand the Constitution.
I wouldn't be so sure of that, but
well, the importance. Listen, you're right about the importance of checks and balances, right? That seems to be the argument now at a federal level, right? We're seeing that on our news feed, certainly to some extent in Trenton. But I don't disagree. I think about having checks and balances at the local level. What I would say is, I think that this cycle is really interesting though, man, because pretty much when you're looking about what the ballot's going to look like come November, like the county register, it might look like a scroll, right? Like that's how long. Again, if
yeah, there'll be a lot of people.
Again, if we're going to have 4 candidates, maybe 5 running for mayor, and their slates, I mean, we're talking about. This might look like a game of Monopoly. Like that's how far out you can.
It's going to be a big ballot.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, but by the same token, if we have, that much of a divided council, I mean, will anything really get done? I mean, let's just say theoretically, let's just say McGreevy becomes mayor. Let's say maybe only 2 of his council slate make it, and then maybe 2 from Solomon's, 2 from O'Day's. I mean, we could face the reality that maybe nothing really gets done because of the bickering and infighting, Aaron. Maybe I'm being too apocalyptic, but I think that also, to some extent, like, elections have consequences. If you win, you win. And if
I don't know. I mean, I think I like divided government. I think it's that would be my preference. I mean, I think that so many of the things that have happened in Jersey City over the last 12 years that are not good,
fair,
could have been alleviated had there been more questions asked, had there been more pushback. I could go down a long list, but I think we need, we don't need a rubber stamp. I don't think.
No, you're right.
I think it's a waste of taxpayer money. We should just get rid of the city council if it's just going to be a rubber stamp, because it's a waste of money. I mean, they do provide some constituent services, which is great. But in terms of being a check on the mayor and on the administration and asking good questions, I mean, there's so many issues. I mean, I'm not even going to begin.
No, you're absolutely right. I think a divided government, I see the argument for that. But by the same token, and again, my answer sometimes, not to play devil's advocate, but it's just to say, but you got to win elections. When you win elections, and if you have a mandate, and you're right that there's a lot that's gone wrong in 12 years. I don't disagree with you. But I think that, listen, if you win elections and you drag people across the finish line with you, then that's just elections, though, to be fair.
Right, but remember, I think that it's fair to say that so many of the candidates that ran under Fulop's slate probably wouldn't have been viable, or certainly would have been in much tighter races.
Right.
Had they not had Fulop, supporting them, and had they not been part of his quote unquote team. I mean, Mira Prince Array almost lost to Joel. I think it was it Joel Brooks? Almost lost to him. Fulop had to go up there and campaign to drag her across the finish line. So I think these are not candidates that necessarily are very strong, and I would rather see people who are stronger winning on their own merits than being swept into office.
Fair. That's fair.
On the coattails of somebody with a lot of money.
That's fair. Well, speaking of a candidate looking to get there on their own merits, right?
Yeah.
Which brings us to another story I know you guys covered about Musab Ali, and a recent endorsement from the state of Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. And for everybody that's not familiar, again, and I'm gonna try to be as objective as I can here. One of the more progressive members in Congress back when he was in the House of Representatives. Obviously now the Attorney General in a state like Minnesota. Again, Ari, listen, I've looked at Musab Ali's campaign. He's staying in this race. He's raising money, getting some interesting endorsements for sure. But listen, like I've talked to assembly candidates and local candidates as well. I mean, you have to win over everybody. And, when you think about Minnesota, for me, and again, I'm the conservative, right? I mean, when I think about Minnesota, I think about Tim Walz. I think about Keith Ellison. I think about the state, really not a state I'd want to live in per se.
Yeah.
For me. But
I hear it's a really nice place. I have been there actually, but people from Minnesota are very nice. They have that reputation.
No, they are.
And,
my concern about Keith Ellison is, again, like I've told some assembly candidates and other candidates as well, like, yes, Jersey City has a big progressive base, and certainly you want to tap into that.
Right.
And certainly Musab's trying to do that. Musab, certainly, when you think about it, is trying to take some of the Solomon vote away.
Well,
obviously, he's a progressive.
Obviously, one of the reasons that Keith Ellison from Minnesota is endorsing Musab Ali, and this is not a knock at all. Keith Ellison is one of the highest ranking Muslim politicians in the country.
Correct.
So this is I'm sure this is part of their connection.
Sure.
Nothing wrong with that. There are very few Muslim, elective officials at high levels. And Musab obviously has a built-in connection with Keith Ellison. Keith Ellison, yes, you're right. He was seen as a pretty far left progressive. He prosecuted Derek Chauvin. That's kind of become his claim to fame. I guess he took over that prosecution from the local prosecutors. I don't know what, I don't think it's going to change any votes in Jersey City. The thing that I'm more interested about Musab, who's, obviously extremely smart and extremely, talented and has impressive credentials. The thing about Musab is he hasn't really, as of yet, spelled out what he stands for, what he wants to do.
Yeah, it's a problem.
So he sent out an email. I think it was today, actually. I just clipped a quote from it, and it said, "You should vote for me because I embody the spirit of Jersey City: resilience, diversity, and community." And he goes on in that vein without any specifics. He's not talking about, as James Solomon is. He's not talking about like a plan to combat corruption. He's not talking about building rec centers like McGreevy is. And I don't want to leave O'Day out of this, but certainly O'Day has been more, I think, more detailed in what he wants to do. Musab has not. I think it would help him to start spelling out what he actually wants to accomplish and what's important to him. That's my perception right now, is that he's a little bit behind in defining himself as to what he wants to do. I
mean, listen, kudos. He's raising money. He's trying to stay, as they say, visible and relevant in this race, which is hard. These candidates are raising money. Obviously, I haven't looked at ELEC reports lately, but sources have told me that, between Solomon and McGreevy and O'Day, respectively, I mean, they're all doing pretty well up until this point. But I'm with you, man. I think Musab not really defined who he is. And it's, it's President's Day weekend. And I get that people might say, well, the election's 10 months away, Fernando. No, but again, I think you have to start defining who you are. Again, the attention span right now, Aaron, is really divided because you have legislative races that are getting the attention of a lot of locals, right? Because obviously in the 31st, 32nd, and 33rd legislative districts, obviously Jersey City's a big focal point here. So the attention span for a lot of residents right now seems to be, again, these legislative races and the ongoing civil war among Hudson County Democrats, kind of going by, under the radar. Yes, is this Jersey City mayoral race, but that's not really so. I mean, the candidates are out there having mixers. I was just at a mixer for Danny Rivera at Hudson House just a couple of weeks ago. By the way, folks, if you haven't been out to Hudson House, beautiful venue in Liberty Harbor. And by the way, folks, you can, Councilman Rivera will be on my show, Real Talk, coming up in May, so stay tuned for that one. But again, the candidates are being out and about for sure. To your point, I think Musab not really having a platform that's defined as well as the other three, and even Council President Waterman. Even listen, I don't even know what Joyce Waterman stands for. Again, nothing against her. I like her, but I think she's falling into that rabbit hole as well. Yeah,
she has not been maybe as vocal as to what she wants to do. I think she does. I mean, I think she's pitching herself as sort of the candidate of the South Side and the forgotten folks. All makes sense. She that's where, she comes from, and that's where her church is. Well, her church is actually not, well, maybe is at the South Side, it's somewhere close to the South Side, but that's I think where her roots are. And that's, who she is saying she represents. I think the problem for her, and I think we talked about this, is that having been so close to Mayor Fulop for so long, who is not very popular in that part of Jersey City,
Yep.
I think she's going to have a hard time disentangling herself from his record, which I know many people on on the south side of the city feel is not good. So I think that's the albatross around her neck.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, that's her cross to bear right now during this
Yeah.
week where, distancing yourself from the mayor is hard. She's been, to your point, I mean, many people in Jersey have looked at the council president as a rubber stamp, like the epitome of a rubber stamp for the mayor.
I mean, were I her campaign manager, I would probably tell her to throw the mayor under the bus. Something that people think Kamala Harris should have done with Joe Biden. And, you need to break away. You need to establish yourself as an independent actor with different ideas. Yeah. And unless she does that, I don't see how she's going to represent change. I think people are going to want change. And, if she is even in the running, and if she's in the top three, her opponents are going to say, look, you want, more Steve Fulop? Well, vote for Joyce Waterman. You want change? Vote for me. Yeah. That's what they're going to say.
Actually, that's really smart. Folks, if you're looking to hire an operative, that guy right there, he seems to have a good pulse about it. Speaking, obviously, of, the mayoral candidates, another good story you covered this week, Aaron, certainly current councilman down in downtown in Ward E and mayoral candidate James Solomon put out a platform very much emphasizing an anti-corruption push. The platform would go on to emphasize government transparency, calling for the automatic publication of key public records and the live stream of all city meetings with options for virtual public comments. Solomon also proposed establishing an online database for city contracts, making information on awarded bids, pricing, and services publicly accessible, to address campaign financing. Also, Solomon's plan proposed implementing New Jersey's first municipal public matching funds program designed to amplify small dollar contributions and reduce reliance on large donors. The initiative would aim to create a more accessible political system for candidates with significant financial backing. Again, a pretty good excerpt from your column on the Jersey Times. What are you hearing about whether or not residents, again, on the ground are amenable to this?
Well, I'm sure they are amenable to it. People are so cynical. I mean, one of the things that shocks me, maybe it shouldn't shock me, is just, how cynical people are. This comes from living in a place that has such endemic corruption, or has such a history of endemic corruption, and I would argue still has quite a bit of corruption that needs to be exposed. People are very cynical. So, I think there will be eye rolling among the cynics who read that. I think the idealists downtown, the progressives, will love it. People in the rest of the city who really expect very little of in the way of ethics will roll their eyes at this. And I don't mean to say that it's not a worthy platform or cause. It is. It's just the cynicism about the degree to which Jersey City can clean itself up is the cynicism is just rampant and high. And I see this all day because I watch the social media conversations that we get on our different social media platforms. And people just they don't expect much from Jersey City, I have to say, and I think it's too bad, because I think we can kind of clean things up as a city if we really try. But yeah.
Well, I'll say this though. I mean, I think Solomon's been very loud. Obviously, going back to last year when the former U.S. Senator Bob Menendez was indicted, and subsequently once the trial began last summer, and he was convicted ultimately. I mean, Solomon was one of those sort of Democrats in Hudson County. It was very much about like, hey, we have to throw the book at him. We have to make an example out of the former U.S. Senator, right? I mean, it's sort of part of the reason that, he was reluctant to endorse his son during the primary race last summer, obviously, Republican Mayor Ravi Bala. Not sure if that heat and anger subsided. I know that did not rub the current U.S. Representative Ron Menendez very, very well. I'm not sure, again, if that disdain for each other has eroded, but we'll see. Obviously, I think that Solomon has been one of those vocal, government officials here in Hudson County that's been very much like, listen, Jersey's got a bad rap, whether it's a member of the empire down in South Jersey, right, with Norcross. Obviously, we're hearing about things in Trenton. Obviously, what happened with former U.S. Senator Bob Menendez. New Jersey just has this bad stench to it, man. It's just unfortunate, right?
Jersey does generally, and Hudson County is probably the worst in Jersey.
Again, listen, when I've taught American government, one of the books I've always assigned is The Soprano State. And my students are always like, what? I'm like, just let's read this book this semester and trust me. And when they read The Soprano State, I mean, it's a reminder about how corruption has become so synonymous with New Jersey. And obviously there's elements in Hudson County that, officials are being scrutinized at all levels, right? And I think Solomon's push during this election cycle, right, where people want transparency, people want some accountability in government, right, whether it's at the federal level, state level, or local, it's not a bad move by James at all.
No, it's look, I'm just saying, I think the people are quite cynical about it. I think it's a great move for him politically. Look, he's building a brand, and I think, he's sticking to that brand, which is what you got to do when you're building a brand. And I'm not saying it's a cynical thing on his part, like I'm going to be known for this because it plays well to people. I think he believes it. He's got his heart is in this. He's not doing this for show. But people being as cynical as they are probably are going to say, well, what are you going to do about taxes? That's what I care about. Are you going to clean the streets? Sure. How are you going to make things safer? It's, we've seen the police union going after Solomon for, some of his statements during COVID and the George Floyd situation. We've seen the police union going after him on public safety and, defund the police stuff. And he will say, well, I never said defund the police. I never used those words, never said that. He just said, I think we should devote some of our resources towards some of these root causes rather than police on the street. But anyway, so, I think people do want those other issues that are a little less maybe ambitious and idealistic. I think people want some of these bread and butter issues dealt with, and
listen, I think in the weeks and months ahead, I think all the candidates are going to focus on that. But again, nice job by James to sort of put this out there on the table to sort of nibble on a little bit. At least give residents a reason.
No, I mean, he's putting substance out there, and I'm getting stuff from these guys all the time.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I feel like sometimes I have to say, guys, enough. I've got more than I can handle.
No, certainly. And listen, speaking of more than you can handle, obviously, I think another good op-ed this week that caught my eye today, Aaron. I really wanted to sort of get your thoughts on this. Obviously, current County Commissioner Bill O'Day and one of his council running mates, Elvin Dominici, with a great op-ed titled "It's Time to End Domestic Violence for Good." And I got to tell you, reading that, and as someone that talks about domestic violence, I mean, consistently on my show on Monday nights, Real Talk, folks, which you can check out every Monday night on Jersey First TV. It seems like it's a topic that doesn't really get reported about a lot. Obviously, every October, as I'm very dedicated to Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but October is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I think people forget that. And I think whether it's in October or even now when it's, teen dating violence awareness this past week, obviously I just saw it on Instagram as well. I think it's a great op-ed to put out there because it really doesn't get the attention I think it deserves, especially in local media or even statewide media, where it is still a pervasive problem.
Yeah, I mean, we had a horrible murder a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
triple homicide. It was a domestic violence situation. A boyfriend took the life of his ex-girlfriend and her 2 children in the Heights. Just unbelievably savage and tragic. And, the degree to which Jersey City specifically can intervene in these situations, I'm not sure of. In advance, I think there are county resources for these kinds of situations, but certainly the police. It wasn't their op-ed wasn't so much focused on what Jersey City's response should be, although there was reference to what the police should do. But yeah, it's a super important issue. I'd be curious to know. I'd be curious to hear ideas about how Jersey City government specifically can address the issue. I haven't heard any concrete proposals to deal with it, but it's an awfully important cause.
Absolutely. And before we call it a night here, on a happier note, obviously we don't want to end on that somber note. Shout out to Ishan Gupta, 11-year-old. You just reported on this today. 11-year-old sixth grader at Frank Conwell Middle School, MS number 4 in Jersey City, who was named the 2025 Hudson County Spelling Bee champion. Now, the annual competition, now in its 66th year, took place this past week at High Tech High School in Secaucus. Gupta outlasted 75 other contestants in grades 3 through 8 from schools all across the county, securing a victory in the 7th round with the word Guan, Guan. He will now represent Hudson County at the Scripps National Spelling Bee in Maryland later this year. Folks, Aaron, I got to tell you, as someone who did pretty well in spelling bees and actually went to a few county competitions during elementary school, man, this brought back some memories for me.
Yeah, good for you. I'm a terrible speller. I'm the worst. I'm the reason spell check was created. Because English spelling actually makes no sense. You have double letters where you don't need one. You speak Spanish also, right? I mean,
I'm fluent. Yeah.
So do I, and Spanish makes sense. You have a double R. In a situation where you're going to roll it, there are very specific situations where you double up the letter, and otherwise you don't. A double L as a specific sound in Spanish, and otherwise it's a single L, right? English makes no sense. It's this bastardized language that comes from so many different places, right? I mean, it's German, French, and all these different. So I think it's amazing that anybody can spell well, and this kid is my hero, and I could use him at my newspaper.
I gotta tell you,
my work.
Great job by him. Good, best of luck to him in the state of Maryland coming up at the National Bee, and we'll see. Maybe a Jersey City kid will become the national champion. That'd be a great story for sure. Aaron, absolutely. Aaron, we're about to wrap up here, man. Anything good coming up here? I mean, listen, you always got great stuff going on at the Jersey. And folks, by the way, check out jcitytimes.com. Subscribe. Listen, for a cup of coffee, that's all it will take to subscribe to the Jersey City Times. If you want to rely and try to keep local journalism up and running, which, in a time when a lot of local mechanisms are sort of fading away, not the Jersey City Times. So definitely, folks, it's a cup of coffee. It won't kill you. But what's coming up at the Jersey City Times, brother?
I'd have to kill you if I told you. And I do have a good one coming up, but I actually can't divulge what it is. I've got a great one. It's taking up all my time, and it's going to be pretty big, I think. So stay tuned, guys.
Okay.
We will have reporting on the city council meeting, which is taking place tonight. Find out what happens with this SID in Journal Square. So we'll be following up on that. We got a nice story about. Here's one. We got a nice story about a kid, and we try and cover human interest stories too, not just politics and not just depressing stuff that makes you want to move to God knows where, Wyoming or something. We have a great story about a kid keeping bees. That's coming up.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, folks, again, coming up on Monday night at Real Talk, obviously via Jersey First TV, I'll be talking to Anthony Mitchell, one of the executive directors of CWA. A lot to talk about during this 2025 gubernatorial primary. Obviously, CWA, a very prominent labor union in New Jersey. Obviously, we've always been backing Democrats, but we'll see what happens during this election cycle. And certainly, again, folks, tune in this Monday night live at 6:05 Eastern time for Real Talk on Jersey First TV. Before I forget, man, tomorrow's Valentine's Day. Where are you taking the wife?
You put me on the spot, man. We've had bad experiences. Restaurants do their best work, when they're not focusing on Valentine's Day or these these special holidays. So we'll probably stay home and watch Netflix, I think.
Okay. Well, listen, nothing like a nice romantic night at home, Netflix and chill, nice little bottle of wine, brother. Right? I think
there you go.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm not as fortunate. I'll be probably going to some singles mixers and see what
Barcade is still open, right? Isn't it?
Yeah. Well, listen, as a bachelor, gotta take advantage of wherever there's some single ladies out there tomorrow on Valentine's Day. I'm sure they'll be as anti-Valentine's as I am. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But folks, again, do us a favor. Make sure you follow Jersey City Times on Instagram and Twitter at Jersey City Times. Obviously, make sure you check me out also at The Amazing Uribe on X and Instagram as well. Of course, make sure you check out jcitytimes.com for all the great content brought to you by Aaron Morrill and all the great staff at the Jersey City Times. Folks, we'll see you in a few weeks here on StreamYard. Obviously, we appreciate you tuning in here. We'll keep you posted about everything going on in Jersey City politics, life, culture, real estate, and just everything in Jersey City, folks. No one does it better than the editor of the Jersey City Times, Aaron Morrill. I'm Fernando Uribe, the host of Real Talk with Jersey First TV. Folks, we'll see you in a few weeks here. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy President's Day weekend. Please party responsibly. And once again, if we're talking about Jersey City, we're doing it here on StreamYard, also on Facebook Live, as well as on YouTube. We appreciate you tuning in here. Folks, have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon here on Talking Jersey City.
Hey, you still there?